Hello and welcome to The Pickle, brought to you by AC4SA, Academic Coaching for Student Athletes, and co-hosted by Ethan O'Day and Jack Sundberg. Here on The Pickle, we discuss with our guests, ranging from coaches to professional athletes, the pickle of all things: academics, sports, recruiting, high school to the pros, you name it, we talk about it. Our goal for the podcast is to give people insight into the sports world and student athletes' perspectives by sharing current and former athletes, educators, and coaches' real-life experiences. Telling stories is one of the most powerful means for leaders to influence, teach, and inspire. These stories resonate in our culture, history, and lesson learned. The Pickle brings you these stories of adversity, triumph, failure, and determination to get inspired, to take them to your school, home, life, and court. Listen, learn, share, and enjoy. Today's guest is Jonathan Perrin from Olathe, Kansas, where he attended Olathe East High School. From there, he went on to play baseball at Oklahoma State as a Cowboy. At Oklahoma State, he was all Big 12 first team and was also Big 12 first team All-Academic. He was drafted in the MLB draft in 2014 and in 2015, where he was taken by the Milwaukee Brewers. From there, he went on to play 6 professional seasons before starting his new career as a financial advisor with Waterfront Advisors in Kansas City. While playing, Perrin was involved in finance and studied, and was even referred to in an article as stock trader by day, ball player by night. Welcome to The Pickle.
Here we go, the Pickle Pod. We're back and we're better. Super excited for our guest today. He's an Oklahoma State former pitcher, Milwaukee Brewers draft pick, and current financial advisor, Jonathan Perrin. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Jack. Thanks, Ethan. Super excited to get on here and chop it up with you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. I'm fired up. I think you're going to have a lot of great insight. I think, we haven't really had any Oklahoma boys on the podcast so far, so I think it's going to be good getting that sort of Midwest country vibe on here. So I don't know if you've been following the show, but, we start off usually with the rundown, which is just 5 rapid fire questions just to everyone gets to know you a little bit better and a little icebreaker. So Ethan, take them away.
All right, here we go. Dinner with one athlete.
Ooh, living or all time?
Either one.
Muhammad Ali.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good one. We haven't had that.
That's the first one, yeah.
Favorite
We should clarify
for sure.
this for next time, the living or alive. Number one thing on bucket list.
I want to go to travel to Prague, Czech Republic, to see some family there. Got some extended family that still lives there.
Wow.
That'd be awesome. Favorite movie of all time?
Good Will Hunting.
Oh, that's a Boston boy. What do you know about that?
That's in my top 3. That honestly, it's probably one of the best movies ever in my opinion.
Oh yeah, dude, Robin Williams at his best, right there, unbelievable.
Yeah,
absolutely. And how do you start your day every morning?
I wake up at 5 a.m. I do a 5-minute meditation, and then I go to the gym and work out.
Boy,
that's it. Early riser workout people are just a little different.
I always joke with my girlfriend, I'm just institutionalized from college baseball. That's why I do it now.
That's so true.
All right, last question here. First quote that comes to mind.
Oh, if you don't like it, play better.
Oh my gosh, that's a
the minor league grinder anthem.
Hey, you don't like the spread? Play better.
Does that come from someone, or is it just a well-known thing in the minor leagues?
Dude, that's just the saying in the minor leagues. There's T-shirts like, you get PB&J a lot in the locker room, and there's a T-shirt where it's like a jar of peanut butter and a jar of jelly and a loaf of bread, and it just says, if you don't like it, play better.
Yeah, man, that is such a
playing overseas basketball too. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you're driving around a little smart car. Don't like it, play better. That's funny.
All right, that's
cool, man.
Rundown. Let's get rolling into these questions, Jack.
All right. Yeah, so we'll sort of just hop right in. So obviously you're playing baseball at a really high level. I think Big 12 baseball is obviously some of the best in the country. So you're grinding every day, to be in the starting lineup, to, be that guy in the bump. But then at the same time, you know, you're competing academically. And, you know, you're a guy who is, you know, Big 12 all academic pretty much your whole way through. So talk a little bit about, you know, the balance of that. Because I think a lot of student athletes, you know, they struggle with it, especially early on, freshman year, you know, finding their ropes and stuff like that. So talk a little bit about just the time management and just sort of the whole thing.
Oh yeah, so you nailed it right on the head. That's the biggest key is the time management piece. I mean, you only got 24 hours in the day, and you should be getting 8 to sleep. I can definitely say that I did not average that in college. It's more like 5. But that kind of leads into, you know, what you have to do to be able to perform at a high level, both in the classroom and on the field. You have to sacrifice things, you know, and that can be a lot of different things. One of them being sleep. The other one really usually is the fun part, right? You can't go out and party. You can't do certain things that normal college students can, because instead of going and hanging out back at your apartment from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., you're at practice or in the weight room. So you just really have to be able to manage your time and prioritize what's important to you. You know, depends on you. Everybody has to make a choice of what you want to do, as far as which you only have a certain amount of time to invest in yourself or in other things. So for me, it was just making sure I was getting done with practice, getting into my tutoring sessions, you know, getting enough time in the writing labs, get my papers done. You know, you just really have to kind of plan things out in advance and manage your time properly, or else things sneak up on you and can get away from you really quickly. And yeah, early on, I was a prime example of that. You know, I was actually a better student in college than I was in high school.
Wow.
I was like a 3. I think I finished like a 3.45, 3.5 in college, and I was like a 3.2 guy in high school.
Wow.
And I had a very rude awakening my freshman fall. So I came in as a preferred walk-on. So I was all academic money. I had a good ACT score, no baseball money as a freshman. So everything that my financial aid was tied to was 100% tied to grades. And
Wow.
the day my parents dropped me off at the dorm and moved me into the dorm, my mom turned around and said, "You have to keep a 3.0 to keep your scholarship. If you do not keep your scholarship, you don't get to do all this." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And but I tell you what, man, I was a history major in college, and my first history test, like history, like it was, you know, history 101, and I got a D. And I was like,
I was like, mom's coming to pick me up right now.
I was like, oh my gosh, like I am never gonna get to go here. Like I'm screwed. You know, but I just had to learn. I had to learn how to study. I had to learn how to manage my time better, put in the hours in the study hall to actually learn the material, you know, and not try to cram it all in the night before. But it's a learning thing, you know, you gotta kind of pick it up. And the earlier you can do it, like I learned freshman fall, I got that rude awakening right away.
Right.
And I had a lot riding on it. So I made that adjustment. Some guys just don't end up making that adjustment. But you know, that was a huge learning experience for me.
I feel like a lot of student athletes, and honestly just college students in general, they have that one thing that happens to them freshman year. And I remember for me, it was like going into this bio class with that massive lecture, and it was so hard for me to like keep up with that. And I think my first exam was somewhere around your percentage. And then you kind of have that first talk with like financial academic advisor or whoever, and you kind of like are able to set a plan and like realize there's some classes you have to attack differently. But was there kind of a situation where, was it right after that, or what kind of helped you get onto that right path of getting that almost 3.5 GPA throughout your college career?
I mean, the ability to go to my dream school was definitely a huge motivating factor. You know, my mother went to Oklahoma State as well, so it was kind of like, you know, hey, don't mess up the legacy here now.
Yeah.
So like, you got an opportunity to come play here that nobody thought you were going to be able to do. And I was like, I can't mess this up. If I'm going to mess this up, it's going to be because I'm not good enough on the field. It's not going to be because I didn't put effort in the classroom and got my scholarship ripped. So for me, that was all the motivation I needed. And as soon as I got that D, I had a big old fat 63 right there on the top of that paper. And I freaking went straight to the academic advice, our academic room for the athletic department, got with my advisor and was like, hey, I need some help,
Yeah.
But the thing is, especially me being very fortunate going to a larger D1 school, we had resources. We had a lot of resources, and just being able to ask for help and reach out and just say, hey, look, like I'm behind, I need some help. And a lot of academic or athletic departments are putting resources in place for guys to be able to go do that and get the ship right before things get out of hand.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, you're saying so much good stuff, and it's crazy because like we have, oddly enough, we get a lot of walk-ons who we didn't even know really were walk-ons that come on the podcast. And it's like, and it seems like all these guys who are walk-ons, because I was as well, or, I didn't have any money. I was just a preferred roster spot. And it's like these guys who come in, it's like that are walk-ons. It's really easy for us, it seems like, to be like, this is on me. Like it's not on anybody else. And you're sort of fortunate enough just to have that going in. But also you just said like, student athletes a lot. It's tough. We had Deontay Burton on, a guy who played at K-State actually, and football guy. And he's like
that against them.
Yeah, we won't hold that against the little apple, baby. But he talked about just like the willingness to like ask for help. And he said there's so many, especially at the D1 level, it's just there's a lot of ego in the room. There's a lot of like pride. I can do it myself. But just the willingness to like be like, hey man, like I can't get this done by myself. I got to ask for help. I got to find people who are going to help me, because it's tough. Like you said, especially as a freshman, it's like overwhelming. You come in, you have to meet a whole new team. You're trying to make the squad. And then on top of it, you're taking a history class. And I'm sure Oklahoma State, you're walking into the lecture halls with 300 plus kids, so I think it's definitely tough. But, and I think touching a little bit upon what you were just saying there, as far as like, finding the right people, was that easy for you to make that transition as far as like the bigger school, academic advisors, utilizing your resources, or what was that process for you?
Yeah, honestly, for me, I didn't really have any of that stuff, in high school. Like I was just so in awe of I was just so excited to be there that I was just like, I'm going to use up everything. Like I'm going to take advantage of everything that's been put in front of me. Like I knew that I had been given a wonderful gift, and I was very thankful now looking back on it that I was able to realize that at 18 years old, the opportunity that was put in front of me. And I was just like, yes, like, we had the preliminary meeting, all freshmen, we had mandatory weekly meetings with their academic advisor. So they, like you said, at the Division I level, some of that stuff's just automatically put in place for you. Like we had coaches that had been there at that time for over a decade. Like they kind of knew how to run the ship. We had the Oklahoma State Athletic Department does an amazing job with the academic support staff for athletes. And they had a really good plan in place. So all I had to do was show up to my Wednesday meeting with my academic advisor, show her that I got a D, and she signed me up for a tutor right then and there. So you almost couldn't help yourself. It's almost too easy not to take advantage of it, that situation.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just awesome too. It's like boom there, and you just get it done with, which is awesome. Because I know a lot of guys and gals who we talk to is like D2, D3. They're even, sometimes I think it's even harder because they're like on their own, and they're not playing in front of thousands of people. They're just showing up playing, because they love to play, or because they're on scholarship or whatever it may be. Ethan, I don't know if you had something before I go to the next question. I didn't cut you off.
It's 100% right. Like you have those resources and got to take advantage of it, but some guys don't, and that can be when it gets tricky. When they're I think it's usually like a pride thing, and like almost like they don't want to be embarrassed as well too, like going through it. And some guys, they'll just try to ride it out themselves, and that's when I think a lot of younger student athletes can get in trouble. And then they don't come after that first D, they do it after the third or fourth, and we're like, not much you can do. You might have to retake the class, and your GPA is low. Like I've seen that happen as well. So it's definitely imperative to get on top of it right away, like Jonathan did.
Yeah, speeds up on you fast.
It really can. It will definitely catch up quick.
Yeah, without a doubt. So fast forward a little bit to your professional career. I've probably said this to you like already 2 or 3 times already, but there was an article that came out at you where it said, well, first of all, you went from history to like totally in this finance world, which is like, I think is kind of crazy because you get history, you're a history buff, and then you go all the way to this sort of cutthroat sort of finance world. But there was an article written about you that called you, stock trader by day, ball player by night, which I think is the coolest thing ever. But like, why was it so important for you to sort of have this plan and get into this? Because I think a lot of times, as athletes, you get so locked into just your sport, and it's like the only thing you're focused on. I'm sure you've played with numerous guys, all of a sudden it's senior year or junior year, or at the end of pro ball, they're like, oh my gosh, like, what's my path now? Like, I thought my whole identity as a person was just an athlete. So why was it so important for you to be, a stock trader and looking for different outlets other than baseball?
Yeah, well, I think you really touched on a big portion of that when you talk about having your identity wrapped up in being a baseball player. I think that as a big piece of why guys don't prepare for the end, because so much of your identity is wrapped up in one thing that you can't even wrap your mind around, that not being what you are. And I credit my mother, really. I really do credit my mother. She always told me, it's like, John, you got to be a well-rounded person. You got to be a well-rounded person. You can't just be a dumb jock. Like she'd tell me that. I was struggling with my grades my junior year, and she was hard on me. She yanking me off the field, not letting me go to practice, taking my car keys away. Doing all that stuff. I thought she was about to kick me out of the house for getting a C. Like. It was, so she was really, really hard on making sure that, I was taking care of my business, both on the field, because that was easy. That's what I wanted to do. But making sure I was, doing everything else I was supposed to be doing away from the field, because she, and she really did a good job of making sure that I had other interests outside of baseball. And then, I had a surgery my senior year. So I had an elbow surgery. I had it in November, and I was able to come back and pitch to start the year in February, my senior year. But, you come out, you wake up and your arm's stuck like this, and you can't move. That give you a quick reality check, and you think baseball is all you're ever going to do, and then you can't move your arm, and you're like, well, okay, so if this is my reality, I got to figure out something else. So that really made it flip that switch into even a higher gear academically for me my senior year. And that's when I started to think about going to law school. I had a history major. I didn't want to teach. I knew I didn't want to teach long term. So my original plan was to go to law school. So I actually got accepted to the University of Kansas Law School my first off season when I got into pro ball, because I knew the statistics. I was a 27th round pick. I knew that you had a 7% chance of making the big leagues if you get drafted after the 20th round. Like I knew all these things. So I knew the odds were stacked against me. So I just wanted to make sure I had an insurance policy on myself. So my original plan was to go to law school. I got accepted. But I had my first full season of pro ball was my best year of pro ball. So that kind of is like, I'm going to put this on the back burner for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And see what happens. And then from there, like I said, I graduated with a degree in history. I had no financial knowledge whatsoever. I knew how to balance a checkbook. I knew how to move from checking to savings, and that was about it. And I signed this professional contract. I get a small bonus, nothing crazy, but it's the first chunk of money I ever had in my whole life. And we're sitting there and we had the 401k meeting with the Brewers. So the guy it was Mass Mutual at the time, comes in his little suit and has 150 new draftees in the conference room, puts up his little pie charts and his bar charts, and talks about investing in your 401k and compounding interest. And I was like, hey, this makes a lot of sense. Does this make a lot of sense to anybody else? And, from there, I just was like, I got to figure this out. Like, I got to know what to do with my money. Like, I got money now, I got to figure this out. And so for me, it just started out as I just wanted to learn about it, kind of figure out what I wanted to do. If I was going to hire an advisor or do it myself, I didn't know, but I wanted to have a baseline knowledge before I met with an advisor. And it just turned into a hobby. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the subject. I started reading every book I could find under the sun about it, getting on the Wall Street Journal, got a subscription to that, and started trading stocks for myself just to try and figure it out. And, from there, that hobby blossomed into me eventually getting licensed in 2018 while I was still playing, because I was sitting there in the locker room and I'd have stock charts on my laptop, and that's not the most normal thing you ever seen in a locker room. So
No,
naturally,
definitely
guys
not.
started asking some questions. And they were like, hey, if you help me out, like, if I had 10 or 20 grand to give you, could you help me? And the legal answer was no. And then in 2018, I was able to get licensed. I met a guy who owned his own firm. He helped me get sponsored to get licensed. Then I actually started managing money for some teammates my last 2 years of pro ball. And that's what kind of led into the transition of me doing what I'm doing now.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
So long story
really cool.
long. That's how we got there.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It's funny because I see this with a lot of guys that I know playing pro basketball too. It's like you need that side hustle hobby to balance it out, especially when you're grinding out the minor league ball or the overseas ball when you have all this free time in between. And it's like, that's the difference when you start playing a professional sport is you're like, whoa, you got a lot of extra time outside of your sport to like focus on something else, but it can't be anything physical because your body's done.
Yeah,
you got to try to
already
stimulate
enough.
You got to stimulate the brain, something when you're in your bed or sitting down somewhere. But that was something I struggled with too. I was like, oh, like I need to be doing something, and it was you got to figure it out. So that's really good advice, and for anyone that decides to play pro, like you should start finding out whatever that passion is. Set yourself up for the future, and it's gonna probably help your pro career too, because you're gonna be fulfilling something else that you feel like might be missing. So yeah, that's awesome. You're able to do that and help some teammates out with some money.
I agree.
know.
Yeah, and it's just you talk about stimulating the mind and just keeping yourself busy. I kind of going back to that time management, trying to make it productive time. A lot of guys. I just didn't want to be the guy that came and just played video games all morning. I knew a lot of guys that did that, and I'm thankful for the history degree because it made me a good reader. I naturally kind of am a learned affinity for reading. Like I didn't like to read when I was younger, and now I love it. And so I just started to hit the books and just trying to absorb some knowledge that could actually be useful, and just like making that productive use of that downtime versus just like sitting there playing video games or watching Sports Center all morning.
Oof, man, you hit it on the head. I think, and it's crazy too because you hear even student athletes, even when you're younger, I mean, you have a lot of free time. I mean, you really can only work out so much.
Yeah.
Like people who are like, oh, I'm grinding all day. It's like, really? Like, I mean, you get your one workout in, you get your shots up, you get your swings in, you get off the bump, like, and then what? You do your band work, maybe get in some speed work and stuff that's only taken up max maybe 5-6 hours a day if you're really like out there doing it like
that's
a lot.
Work slow.
Yeah, that's if you work. So like you can get your stuff in like boom like that. And I think it's really important for people to hear that, especially younger student athletes. Like you got time to find out, like you said before, your mom harped upon it a lot with you, is being well-rounded. Like, and it's important to try different things because if you try it now when you're early, maybe when, you're older, you already know it's like, okay, well, maybe history is not for me. I'm not a math guy. And that can lead you into different paths and just help you find that sort of, like Ethan said, your side hustle, your passion outside your sport a little easier. And sort of, as we were just talking about, your 401k and the Brewers, helping you set that up and, you getting interested in that, you're working with the organization More Than Baseball. And a lot of stuff they do is they really help minor leaguers, whether that's, giving them grants, helping them with educational needs, next steps in their life. But I think what you do for them, is financial education, which I think is huge. And I think it's important just to set yourself up for some sort of knowledge in the future, because we're all going to grow up. We're all going to have to move into a house, maybe start a family, whatever it may be. Talk a little bit about that, just the importance of setting yourself up for the next level, whether that's financial education or just learning about, meaningful degrees that you can take. But obviously you're doing a lot with More Than Baseball. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, More Than Baseball is a cause really near and dear to my heart. Co-founders Jeremy Wolf and Slade Heathcott, we all kind of started talking about some of these minor league labor issues along, the lack of a union, the pay, the travel conditions, things like that. We all kind of started talking about these things around the same time and about spring training in 2018 when that Save America's Pastime Act came through. And it just, for me, that really hit a nerve because I would been thinking about, why are we getting paid this way? I was about to be in AAA that year. I was a step away from the big leagues making $2,000 a month. Like it made no sense,
Crazy.
And so we all kind of started down that path. I continued to play for a couple more years and kind of went my own direction with the financial stuff. But Jeremy and Slade have continued to really push and build that charity up. And now we're doing a lot of different things. They've got a bunch of different programs. I'm fortunate enough to have gotten hooked up with them as their director of financial education. So we're doing a lot of stuff for guys just as far as basic investment principles, teaching them, which minor league teams have a 401k that they can enroll in, who do they need to talk to do that, because even if you are making, $2,000 a month, it's still a couple $100 putting away every month. Next thing you know, for me, I played 4 years in affiliated ball. It wasn't nothing. There's a few grand saved up by the end of that. Like it's not gonna, break the bank or anything, but it's something. It's a start, and it develops those good habits for when you do get on the backside, either making it to the big league level, or you go out and you get a real job and you start making normal people money, right? And you already have those good habits and that good foundation in place. So that's really what I'm trying to do with that financial education piece is just, help with some budgeting, understanding the basic tax rules, things like that. And then, that organization is doing even more stuff. They're putting money in guys' pockets with grants. We do other types of educational stuff, career transition, English as a second language for those Latin American guys. It's all about education and information. The more you can arm guys with tools to help themselves. Most guys they're athletes, they're elite people, they're elite individuals, they're professional athletes for a reason, and they're going to take those tools and wield them accordingly as they need them. But we've been seeing some really good feedback. A lot of guys are getting some help, and it's just really cool to be a part of an organization like that, being able to help guys that were in a situation that you were in not that long ago, for at least the three of us, Slade, Jeremy, and myself.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I mean, it's so crazy because they're doing this at the professional level, but it's like, there'd be so many people, which we try to help, at ComWarp and AC4SA is helping these student athletes realize that, sports aren't going to last forever, but it's like, you could honestly put exactly what they're doing at More Than Baseball with, NCAA student athletes, because there's so many people and athletes who, finish their careers like we were talking about a little bit earlier. And then their identity is like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, I don't really necessarily have any self-worth other than playing this sport. And we had a guy on not too long ago, a football player, and he was like, it's all I knew. It's like, this is the whole thing. I've been doing this for the past 15 years of my life. And now it's like, boom, it's over. There's no like career transitioning program that I can hop into. And so it happens with, NCAA people and student athletes, a lot, guys and gals. Talk a little bit, just the importance of that, even at the NCAA level, of just finding different things that you're interested in. And like you said, just preparing yourself for that next step.
It's just, as in sports, right? If you're well prepared and you're going into a game confident, you got a good game plan and you got a good plan going into that, you're going to feel better and more confident about what you're going to do as soon as you step on the field. And in the field of life, it's the same way, right? If you have a good game plan, you at least have an idea of what your skill set is, what your personality traits are and what you like and don't like. You can do an incredible amount of good stuff just off knowing those few things. So, right. But you have to be able to be willing to take a step back and kind of, look outside of your identity as an athlete and say, okay, yes, I am John or Jack or Ethan, the athlete, but what else am I good at? Right? There's you're not just good at sports. Nobody's a one-trick pony. You can teach an old dog new tricks, I promise. So, you just have to kind of get that plan going, and because it will take the stress off you. Leaving sports is stressful no matter what, but if you can at least have somewhat of a coherent idea of what you want to do on the back end, it's gonna take a lot of stress off of you. I can promise you that. Just do what feels natural. That's what I always tell people. I got into what I'm doing now very natural and organically. And it just happened because I found something that was an interest. I just continued to explore it, and it just continued to blossom from there. So just do what feels natural. You only have to be right once.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah. It sounds like the work that you're doing with these minor league players, it's helping them kind of navigate through this time where they're only identifying as a baseball player, and helping them realize that there's other stuff to be thinking about, and preparing them for that next step. Because like you said, obviously not everyone can make it to the pros, and that statistic that you gave of only 7% making it past the 20 round, like they you need to have that backup plan. So that's amazing work that you're doing there. The question we ask all of our guests that we just started asking is, if being a student athlete is so difficult, why play at all? Because when you're playing a sport, it can really run you down. And I think everyone has that moment where they kind of think, is this really worth it? What advice, how would you answer that question for some younger listeners?
Look, for me, it was pretty simple. I loved playing. I wanted to continue to play as long as I could. I mean, baseball was, for me as a kid, my outlet. It was where I went when I was wanting to blow off steam. It was my happy place, and I wanted to stay on that field and do that as long as I could. I would have done anything to play. For me, it was either go play college baseball or go to the Marine Corps. So so why play college baseball? Well, I didn't want to get shot at in a desert. So, no, but look, you only got a certain amount of time to be able to play this game, man. I mean, as you guys all know, you're all out of sports. Like, I'm sure you would do a lot to have your body feel like it was 20 years old again and be able to go do it just one more time, right? Every former athlete's got that itch where it's like, man, if I could just do it one more time, oh, I'd feel so good. So why not just keep doing it one more time until somebody rips that jersey off your back?
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. I think it's so tough to sometimes see that in the moment, and you hear people talk about it, you talk to your grandfather or your uncle or whoever it is, and I'm like, man, like I will do anything to be back out there. And it's so hard to sometimes see that in the moment, but the more you can realize and just continuing to play it because you love it, because obviously the higher you go up, the more it becomes like a job. Even in college baseball or college sports, it's like you're working, it's literally like a job. And then
you're
obviously
40 hours, close to it a week.
Oh, for sure. And that's like, and then you throw in the travel and all that, it's a lot. But I think it's just so true. It's just like, just enjoy it while you got it, because it's tough to see in the moment, but it's really special.
And then I just would like to add one other thing to that too is, being an athlete opens so many doors for you. If you play at a high level, whether it's the collegiate level, you have alumni, that opens you up to alumni associations. That opens you up to having former teammates, right? And as you guys probably know, the longer you stay in a sport, your world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And you are able to develop relationships and open up doors that otherwise you would have no idea about. I mean, baseball has opened up so many doors and created so many amazing relationships in my life, and so many great experiences that I never, ever would have gotten anywhere close to without it. So that's just another part of it. I mean, the people in the game and the people you're going to meet throughout your travels and your career, that's worth the price of admission right there. I don't regret a single drop of sweat that I put in the weight room, not any of the blood that got out on the field, like none of it. It was all worth it because I have so many amazing relationships and experiences to take away from it.
Yeah. I always say that too about basketball. Yeah, I felt the exact same way. But the basketball connections that you make when I was being able to travel all over the world with basketball too, it was a really cool thing. And I think a lot of high school athletes, that this question too, they're like, man, you got to sacrifice a lot in high school. You're giving up a lot of social time, a time of your life, and college too. There's a time of your life where you're socially interacting with people the most, and you kind of that's your world, and you got to give that up. But looking back on it, like you said, most athletes never ever trade that up because the connections you make through the sport. So that could not agree more.
I don't regret missing one high school party, man. I don't.
Yeah. No, not me there. I don't even know what homecoming is. So sort of our last question here, which is one that we always ask our guests, you know, because I think it's good for younger student athletes to hear, and parents and coaches and even teachers. You know, if you could go back in time and talk to, you know, high school Jonathan and tell him, you know, a little piece of advice, whisper in his ear, you know, to get ready for this whole college process and, you know, pro ball and, you know, being a student athlete, what would be that advice to your younger self?
My advice to my former self would be to cultivate your relationships more.
Mm-hmm.
Find the people that are going to be in your corner and fight for you, and just get attracted to those people, latch on to those people, the people that are going to support you, and just develop those relationships, man. Stay in touch with the people that you're close with. Just continue to deepen and widen the relationships that you're going to make throughout that time period, because that's by far the most fulfilling piece of the whole thing is the people you meet and the lives that you're able to impact along the way, and the impact that those people are going to have on the way you think, the way you act, and the way you present yourself to the world. So just really just to pay mindful attention to the relationship piece. Because the baseball part, I mean, any athlete worth their salt, they got that one in the bag. But the people part of it is what separates it for me. I mean, my experience at Oklahoma State was amazing, and it is 95% of it has to do with the people I was around for those 4 years when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and similar to your last answer, I think that's so true. I mean, we had a guy on who was a football player. He's a Connecticut guy, played at UConn. He's from a small town in Connecticut, and he's like, I'm meeting so many people that I had no business, you know, hanging out. He's like, I'm down in Atlanta at, you know, my buddy's cookout. Like, I never would have met these people. And, you know, and then his other buddy is, you know, just won the Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's like, this is unbelievable. And this is just through the relationships, you know, I've created and cultivated, like you said, I think is really special.
My off-season throwing partner for like 7 years in college and pro ball just threw a no-hitter in the big leagues yesterday. So
the Orioles guy?
Yeah, John Means.
Wow.
I've known that kid since I was 15 years old.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
You never know, right? You just never know what's going to happen. You never know.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, man, Jonathan, unbelievable having you on. I mean, you're just a stud all around baseball. I mean, sneaky, like mix in a law school too, just getting accepted there. Like, I think you're doing a lot of great stuff. And I think the coolest thing is, man, is like you're giving back. Like, you're making this call from the cages. Like you just worked a full day. It'd be so easy for you to just go home, cash it in. But you're, you know, finding ways to give back, still be part of the community, and, you know, hopping on, you know, a podcast like this, I think is just a testament to who you are, man. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate those kind words. I thank you so much for having me on. Let's do it again soon.
Yes.
No doubt.
I appreciate you having you on.
Thanks for tuning in to The Pickle, who is brought to you by AC4SA, academic coaching for student athletes, whose goal is to use the power of sport to unleash the athlete's potential in the academic arena.